Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 7th online event organized under the design of end-to-end export process within the country via blockchain technology technical cooperation project developed jointly by the EBRD, European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and the Ministry of Trade with the funding of the Ministry of Treasury and Finance.
As the name explains, we are discussing about providing safer and more effective process for the community and stakeholders. In this respect, we will be concentrating on the stakeholders that will be affected the most and will be discussing on the changing business paradigms. As always, we will first have the opening speeches, following which we will get the contribution of our participants first, and the session will be moderated by Mrs. Ümmü Gülsüm, and also we will be hearing from special guests in this panel. For the opening, as the deputy head of EBRD, we were expecting Mr. Üres, but unfortunately he had to attend another meeting, so he wished for the success of the panel, but he couldn't make it. And for this occasion, I would like to invite from the Ministry of Trade and Public Policies and New Generation Technologies Department Head to the floor for the opening remarks. Mr. Önal will be speaking. Hello, everyone. I would like to express my warmest regards to all the participants and to the speakers. Would like to thank them for their participation. Digital marketing and policies, New Generation Technologies Department is very much interested in this topic. As the DG for exports under the Ministry of Trade, we are quite interested about the use of new generation technologies and export process via blockchain technology being one of these technologies. Indeed, there are two phases of the project. In the first phase, we looked into traditional trade modalities. In phase 2, we are rather interested in end-to-end export process via blockchain technology, in other words, e-technologies. Actually, in this workshop, as in the previous one, we are aiming at concentrating on transport and customs procedures, how this process will be affected in blockchain technologies. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome all the participants once again to our virtual workshop, and would like to express my appreciation to all the speakers for sharing their knowledge and experience with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, this brings us to the panel itself. From ATES Software Technologies, Project Coordinator, Mrs. Ümmü Gülsüm Özalp, and Mr. Cüneyt Aykem from UND, Head of Digitalization Working Group, and Mrs. Ayşem Ulusay from İTİKAD, Association of International Forwarding and Logistics Service Providers, and Mr. Abdurrahman Özer from ICT Turkey, and Mr. Murat Palaoğlu from KPMG Turkey. We will be having the panel with your distinguished contribution, and I'd like to leave the floor to our moderator, Mrs. Özel. Thank you very much. I first would like to welcome all of our participants. We are in the occasion of another virtual workshop. As Mr. Tayfun has already uttered, we have distinguished speakers taking floor in this workshop, and I do believe that it would be themselves to talk about their experiences the best, and I will also give the floor to our distinguished speakers who will be introducing themselves. Mrs. Ulusay, firstly, can you please introduce yourself? Mr. Deputy Head of Department and the other participants, I would like to first express my appreciation to all of you for your kind invitation. It's a privilege for me, rather, to be with you in this virtual workshop as a part of this very important project. My name is Ayşen Ulusoy, and I've been involved in international logistics and forwarding in the last 30 years. And as you know, when running the presidency of the association, and briefly about UTİKAT. UTİKAT is the Association of International Forwarding and Logistics Service Providers. Actually, it's an umbrella organization covering maritime, airways, intermodal, railways, and road transportation. Also, this is an association that brings together the service providers in the field of forwarding. So we have rather a large coverage. We are interested in all kinds of modalities in transportation, and the association is providing services to its members in this respect. It's a privilege for us as well to have you with us, Mrs. Ulusoy. Cüneyt Ergen, would like to turn to you. Can you please introduce yourself? Hello, thank you. My name is Cüneyt Ergen. I'm from Alişan Logistics. I am working as the R&D director. For the last 2 years, I am leading the position of head of digitalization working group in UND. And in the last 2 years, we're interested in involving the associates in terms of providing them solutions in their electronic problems. As UND, we've been assisting our members in this respect as well. We have a wonderful team today, as always. We have Mr. Paloğlu with us from KPMG Turkey as the tax partner and head of Customs and Trade Department. I'd like to leave the floor to you. Thank you very much for having me with you. And I'd like to thank the organizers for the kind invitation. It's an honor for me. About myself, I am a corporate tax partner in KPMG. About 22 years ago, I started my career at the Undersecretariat of Customs. After positions of inspection in the public, I got in charge of KPMG tax, in charge of customs and trade. In the last decade, I've been working for KPMG with the stakeholders and with our customers. We are involved in global trade and foreign trade technology solutions, including blockchain technologies. Also, I am running the head of the DEIK foreign trade division. I'm attending a training workshop at the ministry. This is where I'm attending from. Thank you for your interest and attention. It's a privilege for us to have you. Abdurrahman Azad, and you will be the last person to introduce yourself, sir. Hello, my name is Abdurrahman Azad, and for the last 33 years, I've been involved in the sector. I started as a banker, and I started my position in a private bank. Since then, I've been working in the field of foreign trade. I've continued my work in the field of foreign trade. I also am a part of ICC Turkey National Committee since 2000. Also, I've had the opportunity of attending several talks in task groups. I have published books, almost 14 books published so far, 4 manuals, all about the sector, all about foreign trade, all about the use of technologies in foreign trade, including risks and counterfeiting in foreign trade, and many articles I've written. ICC is a major business organization, 45 million, maybe more than that, corporate members. In every country, in more than 110 countries indeed, there are committees for foreign trade. There are banking commissions, insurance commissions, forwarding commissions in the national umbrella. I am at the head of the transport Commission, and we're discussing about our problems, and we are there as a bridge in between the headquarters and the national organization. We help in laying down the rules. Also, we are in charge of making rules for trade as a definition. Actually, this is the only private organization represented before the UN. It's quite a large, a very effective organization. It represents the business community extensively. I think it's really important to be aware of this project. Technology can only be possible if the business community supports this technology. And in my time, I will be sharing with you our experiences. Thank you very much. Although Murat Paloğlu said he is attending a training workshop, one note, we will be starting with Mrs. Ulusoy, but since Mr. Paloğlu will be attending the session and the training, will have to leave early. Would like to thank panelists and participants for their kind understanding and sympathy. Mrs. Ulusoy, I would like to turn to you first. And there have been numerous people following our workshop. Technology stakeholders posed many questions during these workshops. And I have to let you know about these questions on their behalf. The first question is, what do you think is the point of arrival for digitalization in logistics sector? Because speaking of digitalization, people tend to understand it somehow a futuristic term. But where do you think logistics sector stands in digitalization and blockchain technologies? Because of our experience, we've been witnessing some deficiencies. But what do you see as deficiencies in your sector? Of course, logistics is quite a broad sector, and it involves many stakeholders. It's a way of doing business. But in my opinion, logistics is one of the sectors where technology is getting adapted quite fast, because there is a content-wise transformation in logistics as well. Soon ago, during the pandemic, the processes made it possible for technology to be a part of our lives. Later on, war processes in our near geographies and the problems triggered by war in the logistics sector shortens the way to technology. And I do believe that it's the right time. Timing is extremely important, but the fastest actually arrival in technology, both technologically and in terms of the ways of doing business, or maybe changing the ways of doing business. I think sustainability has been the way that we're heading towards, because if a logistics process is to be recreated, redesigned end to end, first you must have a proper management of the process itself. And then, of course, you need to look into the also the supply process, including suppliers, operators, individual stakeholders, sharing of data with different stakeholders. So it's really the digital path that we need to follow. And this is, in our case, of course, it's linked with blockchain technology. Buyers, sellers, customs authority, forwarders, they all need to be in an end-to-end communication with an overall solution to fill in maybe the part of the puzzle that might be missing here, because particularly at the time of the pandemic, there has been a clear change in the way that we're doing business. And this has brought us to the point that it is no longer the path to follow to be physical, and we are not standing in a long distance to way of doing business. So it's important for all stakeholders to agree upon a more transparent, so to speak, more clear way of doing business. And we have witnessed it firsthand during the pandemic. One note maybe to share with you. Blockchain technology is the ultimate target of the project. But in our purpose, we are experiencing problems both in our ordinary way of doing business and in the EU way of doing business. And unfortunately, most of the drawbacks of the problems that we are coming across with are due to lack of confidence. This confidence is both in terms of safety of data, speed, and transparency. So if we get to make a joint understanding in our daily way of doing business, we will also contribute to traceability, because we need also traceability in our operations. And at the end of the day, we also are in need of measurability. Only then we will have the better tracking of our operations, both in terms of profitability and in the way of doing business. Traceability and sustainability can be upgraded or updated maybe if we are having problems in its way of doing business, because I do hope and believe that transparency particularly will be improving in time. Therefore, we need to improve our safety in the systems that we're working in. Legal obligations, legal regulations. We also need to rely upon the legal authority, but we need less legal liabilities. And many other problems, including the user failures, operational problems, field problems, will need to be discussed in a smoother access, in a way of running in a smoother way. So many companies or the port authorities are realizing digital transformation in their own way, in their own systems. There is an integrated system, you know, in Europe. This also contributes to the digitalization of the systems, accelerating the process. Actually, within that transformation, I believe that we will have more and more partners covered. Actually, we're working as UTİKAT on how we can facilitate the system, but end-to-end smooth functioning of logistics, I think, can be done in different ways with several examples provided. Next to digitalization efforts, I think we need a better interaction with public authorities. So it's a must that we have an integration with public authority. So provided that we are speaking the same language, also at the operator level, if we can speak the same language, a proper integration can be achieved. Therefore, digitalization on this level must take place at the outset, if you ask me. Outset, yes, but all alone it's not enough, because today the logistics sector, particularly recently, has gone through many maneuverability efforts, flexibility, infrastructural imperfection, physical and also digital infrastructure. And we are not in the position to be modest too much. And this is something that I keep uttering at every platform, because Turkish logistics sector has been moving towards a significant position amongst its stakeholders. As we have seen in this project, the Ministry of Trade has valuable efforts in this respect. Also, the Ministry of Infrastructure has been spending some efforts about mobility and digitalization as a path to follow. E-state, e-government ways of doing business, and as UTİKAT, there is the logistics CMR, EBLD. I mean, these are all the processes that we are all involved with a top consensus. All the stakeholders are involved and triggered in terms of managing the processes, contributing to sustainability on a digital level. So these are all the efforts that we're spending in this respect. Under the current conditions, it's not enough to concentrate on national customs standards and uphold them to the digital processes of standards. Unfortunately, we would fail. And the same we would need in neighboring countries, because the operations would be in deficiency. Therefore, especially in our target field, we need the involvement of, yes, okay, the ministry is involved, the government is involved, but what we also need representative authorities to be involved within the table discussions. I think it's incredibly important and valuable for our purposes, because for technologies such as blockchain, we would contribute to data safety and transparency. And if we can bring it up to our ways of doing business, we would be at the point of making use of this advantage at the global scale. But integration is essential, starting from the customs authorities. And of course, within ourselves, we need to facilitate business, and then we need to reflect it to the other countries that are involved as a part of this process. But soon we need to do it. And I think from the point of departure to the point of arrival, we need a safe, transparent environment where we can contribute to logistics. And this is something I can say for our members, because today we are all candidates of becoming digital companies or software companies. And to highlight it once again, I need to reiterate the fact that we are ready to undertake responsibility in this process, because as the association, we're already involved in digitalization, particularly for our younger colleagues. And digital literacy purposes, logistics sector will be supported by us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ayşem. You have talked about the level that we're at right now, and also talked about the problems that we're having. The issue of confidence, safety of data, and the transfer of these operations also reveals why we need digitalization and why we need it more. This was the answer to this question. We have heard about logistics from you. Now I'd like to pass the floor to Mr. Murat and ask my question. These are the problems in logistics, and this is the strength of the logistics, particularly in terms of digitalization. In our operations with you in the blockchain Turkey platform, I know you've been interested in this technology for a long time and made certain initiatives there. Now I'd like to hear about the current problems on the customs front, and also about what Mrs. Ayşem mentioned, the problems in the logistics and the problems in terms of customs, how blockchain can help us solve these problems. Thank you very much, Ümmü Gülsüm. I didn't mention, as I introduced myself, of the Turkish Informatics Society. I am following up the agenda together with the country director, and we are participating on that platform. I will also speak about that. I'd like to thank Mrs. Ayşem once again for covering the issue in a holistic manner, not missing any details. And what I will be telling you right now is supporting what she has mentioned from the strategic point of view. Because let me say it from the beginning, if you want to take the initiative in blockchain, you should take joint action. I will talk about the success stories. The public should be a part of it. Otherwise, that initiative is doomed to fail. And in that sense, I'm pleased that this activity, this platform is under the roof of the ministry. I think it's very important, the public contribution. Let me speak a little bit about data. Looking at Turkey, in terms of foreign trade, around 22, 23 years ago, when I first started this profession, the foreign trade volume was very low, but now it's around $500 billion. And it has increased a lot, and the same goods is subject to more than one form of trade. Therefore, it is a bit higher. So for foreign trade, the rate, its portion of the gross domestic product is very high. And in terms of import and exports, we have such high number of declarations, let alone other transit declarations and different types of declarations. So we have such a high flow of information, a high volume of flow. And as Ayşem Hanım mentioned, confidence is very important. Why is it important? Let's assume that one of the stakeholders will receive some goods, thinking about whether he will receive it or not, and another partner is thinking about whether he will be able to receive his payment. So there's such a relationship between the two, which relies on confidence. And also in terms of the country, we want to send the goods abroad because we haven't received tax for that. So there's a time limitation imposed on the flow of goods, and there's also a route that is determined, the route that shall be used for the goods, their export and import. So I won't just get into technical details of the customs, and I should say that you have more experience in blockchain than me, but it is important because the state wants to collect its taxes, wants to maintain safety, and for example, customs tax and prevention of unhealthy goods or food items, or the safety of the goods that are being imported. And also some initiatives are being used and some incentives are being provided for imports or for exports. And in such an environment, I think applying blockchain using this platform is like a miracle. I'm just speaking about the theory. I will now speak about the blockages or the problems that we have and the opportunities we have. Before I heard about this project, I learned that we should be blockchain ready, which means we should be digital, that is what I have learned from this project. And we have a very good example which shows the importance of digitalization. And Mrs. Hassan, the head of department, knows better than me. The share of e-commerce, e-trade has increased both in Turkey and in the world. E-exports also has a bigger share in the market, and which brings us the requirement of digitalization. Because digitalized and safe environment requires individuals to get to know one another, to trust one another, which will result in higher exports. And Turkey is improving itself in this sense. There are many incentives in the public sector, and I would like to thank the prominent bureaucrats for their efforts in this field. But the example of Italy is important. And from 2018, I would like to give you an example. And the effect of the foreign currency, foreign exchange, I would like to share with you because it's a striking example. Although it's not a very new, recent data, I will try to share it with you. Let's compare our population with Italy. Looking at the surrounding geography, you can see they are more like neighbors, two countries of the Mediterranean coast. They have 60 million population, we have 80 million, and they are exposed to influences from the south, just like us, many other common points that we have. And export per firm for 2018, 2.05 million euros, and it is also very similar for Italy for 2018. A kilogram-based export may be higher, they may be focusing more on textile, and we may be focusing on brands, but these are all right, but the number of exporters is very important. While it was 80,000 in our country in 2018, it was 193,000 in Italy. So when we compare this, we have actually had an export of $250 billion that year, while Italy had an export of volume of $503 billion. So the increasing number of exporters is a very important tool to increase your export volume, which requires e-exports to be implemented, and it requires digitalization. So blockchain is an important instrument for that. As the blockchain platform, we have translated the EU directive in this field. And looking at the EU directive and the research report, I can share the translation with anyone who's interested. It is also published on the blockchain website. the production logistics foreign trade working group issued this report, and it was on that working group that we worked together with Mrs. Ümmü Gülsüm. So the details of that report, the important points is that the Parliament Commission of the European Union says that we have worked in this field, these are the areas you can use blockchain in, and these are the fields that you will benefit from. These are published, included in the research report. Let me give you the 6 fields: the transportation documents and marine insurance and e-origin certificate and luxury goods. Again, in the customs legislation, it is included, so it has a larger scope. The 5th field is food and ethics follow-up. Is it a real authentic product? And the 6th one is cross-border payment transactions. Mr. Abdurrahman would cover this field, and the payments, balance of payments and banking, and the markets, letters of credit. So when we look from this perspective, blockchain is a field of interest for all these different fields. There is no need to rediscover America. There are very good examples that we can rely on. You carry out customs transactions in just one day, and you are proud about that. But if there is digitalization in such an environment, it will be around 8 hours. And in the digital customs, if you have a blockchain basis, it will be 30 seconds, the period time of the transaction. So what is the feature of blockchain that enables this? What does it add to us? In terms of customs, we have concerns about the authenticity of the product, the timeliness, the payment of taxes, and is it really of EU origin? Is it an authentic origin document? We always focus on authenticity and time. And what does blockchain provide us? It is a distributed structure, disseminated structure. It's not just about me. Then it is anonymous, and no single partner can harm this process. And there is timeliness, and it is based on full or complete consensus. If the system allows, then the warehouse operator, the forwarder, and the state, if they all agree totally, they do the procedure at the same time, simultaneously. And it is a simultaneous technology. And if you bring it together with blockchain, visibility, mobility, traceability in foreign trade, all of these concerns will be addressed. And there are other solutions in the market as well. So apart from full consensus, you also need to check if there's forgery, counterfeiting. And blockchain is uneditable. You cannot, it's not modifiable. And you have smart contracts, and maybe you need to design new ones if you need to change one. So you cannot just go and edit it. So it is safe and it's programmable. For foreign trade and for customs, these are the expectations, and this technology meets all of these expectations. So in foreign trade, the most appropriate and innovative technology that is required in the scope of digitalization is the use of blockchain. And this project, which is led by the Ministry of Trade and with your contributions, will make possible to make export digitally end-to-end. And we have another program and very nice videos of that program. We have 2 or 3 minute long short videos, which may be more interesting, but we have longer ones as well, which give more detail. They use the Internet of Things, and with the blockchain technology and with the use of drones, starting from where the seed was planted and the seedling grows and wheat is produced from it, then is transferred transferred somewhere else. It is being grounded, turning into flour, and then bread is made out of it. And you can see its authenticity. And there is a Sunrise project, a large rice company, and KPMG. When you go to the market, when you use the QR code, you can see its origin. You can see its records that are unmodifiable, that cannot be altered. And you can see where it was grown and how it was brought to the shelf. So the message I would like to give is that digitalization and blockchain is the key to the solution in foreign trade and digitalization. And it is also important for enabling confidence. If you have confidence, the added value will be increasing both for the public sector and for the stakeholders. But we need a serious amendment in the legislative infrastructure because it requires a single party to give up its rights and share it with the others. Its leadership in the legislative infrastructure is important for the public sector. Thank you very much for your patience. These are the comments, and I'm very proud of being a part of this platform. I will be here for your questions, and in 15 minutes time, I will have to leave the meeting. Thank you very much.
Sözlerinizle birlikte o zaman ben bu soruyu...
Well, thank you. So with your last words, I will be asking you a question and then I will let you go. You've touched upon a very critical point. For the sake of time, of course, I need to ask the questions right away. We're speaking about technology here, but on the background, at the end of every activity, there comes the question from the people following our workshop. People keep asking, are we lagging behind? Is it really possible to achieve such a speedy development? And what is our point of stance and what should we be doing? And what should they be doing? Well, many answers are just popping up in my mind to answer your question, but no one can hinder change, but only we can be a part of it. Lift repairsman. This is expected to be the profession that will disappear. As technology evolves, lifts become automated, and without you pressing the buttons now, you will lead to your point of arrival. So the professions are changing. If there is no one just sitting or just expecting in the lift to press the button now, you need to get a good adaptation. I've completed my education in maybe the most traditional way of education, but now I'm chasing blockchain. So we need to, respect the first reactions. People are first reacting as a denial, and then no one will be standing before the change, so we will realize it. I believe that there is a very high agility amongst the advisors of foreign trade. As an example, the first digital transformation took place in the customs when there was no e-government back in 1995, 99 is the full enforcement of the system. Informatic systems were introduced. So it was the customs authorities, customs officers who were involved in the process of digitalization. So this is what I do observe. What should we do? We should be looking at the successful examples. We should be doing investments. Yes, we're a bit late to do the same thing, but we can just start from another point. But maybe we can use the experiences of others. We're all using Microsoft Word, and I'm not going to write a software from scratch. And we, I think, should not be continuing in handwriting, and you become a part of Word. So you get a good adaptation to digitalization, and then you can fulfill its requirement. So my humble advice to everyone is, as I do in my own business, we need to set our agenda for digitalization, enhance ourselves, invest. Invest does not necessarily mean money investment, but employment investment, time investment also. And in our sector, cooperation opportunities are there, and it's really important to chase these opportunities rather than doing things from scratch. I think we need to get a good adaptation to successful examples, and we can have a fast digitalization based on this understanding. And be assured that I'm sure that customs officers will continue to be leaders in digital world. They are quite agile and they are really very successful in embracing change. Thank you, Murat Bey. So the question seems to be answered after being asked for many weeks. So there is no such thing as resistance to technology, I understand from your answer, and we should be embracing it rather in our practices. So now I'd like to turn to Mr. Ergen, and I have a question for you, sir, about logistics and customs. We've been discussing as to what is going on, what is being expected from the blockchain technology. What is your perspective for this blockchain technology? What kind of a change would you expect from the technology itself? Hello, everyone. I would like to make an introduction to the debate. When it comes to transformation, I think sectoral wise, I think it's our sector that has transformed the fastest, and I've been involved in it in the last 22 years. And it's, we were truckers, and then we were transporters and logistics companies. So the essence of the business has evolved. Now we are all partners to the manufacturers. We are collaborators and stakeholders to them. So we've been evolving. It's quite a dynamic sector. So it's about transformation that we're talking. I think logistics is the fastest adapting technology to change. Logistics industry has already been affected by the transformation with Industry 4.0. The companies managed to increase their operational efficiency to 25%, which was the expected level. After having achieved that within their general structure, the sector itself tried to integrate with the transportation. In other words, transportation of the goods and commodities and the delivery of the items. Therefore, we were directly affected by Industry 4.0. There are organizations that managed to make a proper transformation as Logistics 4.0, as the personnel of information technologies. What we are trying to do is rather first to provide a good integration of data, and we indeed are trying to change data. This is one of the topics that we're trying to do. Without the touch of hand, we are changing hands in data. The second one is electronic documentation systems, many documents, including invoices, statements, bills, so on and so forth. Third issue is traceability. Any product that will get in delivery after production will need to be traceable. So we need to look and see where the commodity is sitting. Fourth, a very important item is analysis. So summing it up, it comes to the IT business, and our aim should be to facilitate operational people in the field. We need to make their lives easier. Blockchain technologies is rather one of the instruments that we're using in this purpose. But this instrument is facilitating our lives tremendously because, for one, safety, it's been discussed, plus and we need to hinder any kind of external attack. We need to protect where we are placing because, information is everything today. Anyone who can proceed with information will succeed. Therefore, if we can keep our data in blockchain technologies, we can prevent any kind of external attack to our data. So now we're in the position of protecting data. Second one is transparency. Now we're not collecting data and we're not expecting data to arrive from one place or the other. Everybody will have the equal level of access to data now. So transparently we can deliver that data to our business units. So the business unit will need to be quite transparent in using, obtaining, and facilitating their operations with data. For instance, bill of lading, there are some information that are included on the bill of lading about the transporter or the dispatcher or the receiver. So the moment that I can have access to that piece of information, facilitate my life. In the past, we used to take a printout of the bill of lading, put a signature underneath, and then dispatch it. But it's like a data entrance. Now I can have access to data from other points of access or entry. So this would facilitate my entry points. And what is operational facilitation? Analysis. We have raw data at hand, but what we need to do is to take that raw data, make it meaningful. It means we need to categorize it and we need to make it a meaningful piece. And at the end, decision makers will be at the point of reaching a decision upon that data. So, as I said, having access to transparent data and keeping it safely, we provide confidence to business units. This is the point of arrival now. The business units will then take that reliable piece of information and use it for their competitiveness or for their operational purposes. So quite easily they can run their operations. So this is, in general, the usefulness of blockchain to our purpose. Thank you very much, Cüneyt Bey.
You talked about the problems and also how blockchain could help resolve them. And this is also our expectation. We will have these problems, and as we can see in logistics and in customs, the focus on this technology, Singapore and US examples and Turkey, in US tests are run all the time on the basis of documents and several other fields, also including the final user. These are all for the same point of view. They have, the sectors have joint common problems and are trying to find common solutions. And the scope of our project is about the domestic transactions. So as we talk about two phases, we are within the borders of our country. But in terms of trade, of course, it is an end-to-end process. We have a starting point and a destination we want to arrive at. And Mr. Abdurrahman, I would like to ask you, when from an end-to-end perspective, what does the blockchain technology mean and what it should mean for us? How can we utilize this technology? Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. For us, it means a lot. A few years ago, while we were talking about this, we were a bit hesitant because in some fields, people didn't know what to expect when we said blockchain, because there's crypto and they had some problems, questions. But the recent examples in international transactions and in the literature or on YouTube, in the videos, these concerns have been addressed. But there is still some concern. When we say digitalization, blockchain is on one side and everything else that is electronic means digitalization because it has a very large scope. And within this scope, the blockchain, how it is different from the other systems, we should be able to tell this, explain this difference. And for the public, particularly for the public sector, we have such a problem being able to explain it. And the issue of confidence and issue of safety, its safety should be emphasized. We know this. Those involved in the business know about its high level of safety, but we also need to tell it to everyone else in order to address and eliminate these concerns. Yes, they are doing it in most places, but not sufficient for now. We need to raise a serious awareness. on these topics. These are my initial comments, and I should say that we have very good financial examples, commercial examples, and we can talk about these examples. So what we have done so far, the activities you have conducted, the support of the public sector and the sponsors and contributing institutions and organizations, with their efforts, we have reached this point and very good steps have been taken. And the business world should now take the initiative and start using it and focus more on this. And where will ICC stand in this? And what role will the banks play in this structure? I will be speaking about this. There is a very good saying about technology I have read recently. If there is a new technology coming towards you, you will either be run over by it or you will become a part of it. It's a very nice saying that I wanted to share with you, and we haven't been run over by it. We have started becoming a part of it. Starting a job is half equal to half of finishing it. Half of success. What is important is to begin, and we have begun, we have reached a certain point, and we will continue to advance uninterruptedly. What can the business world do in this field? What are the advantages it will offer us, and what benefits will it provide us? I think it will be very effective in the business world. The business world can benefit a lot from it, and the business world should be aware of this potential. And what are the benefits? It is speed, risk-free trade, and safety. These will be introduced by blockchain, but blockchain won't do all of these on its own. It's just a technology. Before blockchain, we used SWIFT among the banks, and it was also a technology-based platform which enabled safe messaging, secure messaging. And before that, we used other technologies. In all of these periods, we used different tools, but there were certain methods in trade which didn't change. It is the payment procedures that are used. So these are advance payment, cash payment, and other types of payment, or an intermediary stepping in the payment procedure. So there's a need for security all the time and confidence. And while we were using it on paper, we had a paper-based system, we used the authorized signatures list. Then technology stepped in and SWIFT was introduced, a messaging system among the banks, an online system, which undertook the job of enabling security. And it was secure, it has been secure, no virus or no cyber attack took place so far. And although there were some news in the media, it was more related to the interfaces rather than the system itself. And now we have blockchain, a new technology, and which is coming into our business life, an algorithm, and new technology, a new platform. So the business world, those engaged in trade, should pay attention to this. They may be delayed in terms of shifting their focus, but there may be some barriers in front of this. And one of these barriers is the conservative approach of the business owners. But this conservatism is just about the concerns that they have and their tendency to protect what they have. And they think about, if I use this technology, what will happen tomorrow? Maybe they have some difficulty understanding the details, and maybe they are not sure about whether it will be beneficial or not. So they ask me sometimes when I talk to them, is there no risk? What is the risk level? Even if it's 1 out of a trillion, then they think they won't do it because they find it risky. But you know, there's always a risk. We even have a risk of a meteorite hitting us. The risk may be 1 in 1 trillion. So we always have these risks, but we need to overcome them in our minds. in banking and in trade, of course, there are risks. And the banks are always sensitive to new technologies, just like in the world of logistics and customs and logistics. These sectors are also interested in technologies which offer them speed and safety. So it is very important for banks. Transparency is also very important for audits and for sanctions. And for some controls, these are requirements. And for that, the banks have a real interest in blockchain. And in Turkey, maybe we are not able to see this interest clearly. If that is the case, maybe we haven't been able to explain it sufficiently. We need to give the good examples to them. In the past, we didn't have the good examples we could provide them, but now we have these successful examples. And there are very good transactions, the letters of credit transactions being carried out on blockchain very successfully, even ruling out SWIFT system. In an IC meeting years ago, I was with senior officials from SWIFT sitting alongside me, and when I told them that there's something called blockchain which has no security problems, it is encrypted, it is safe, and it will have an impact on your system. When I said them this, they just laughed at this. They didn't think it could be an important tool that could rule out SWIFT. But now we see that SWIFT wants to use blockchain, wants to cooperate with this platform, because the intermediaries are eliminated when you use blockchain. And for SWIFT, the only capital it had was its safety, but now it left the safety aside, and now it relies on its network because it has a good network. So it will be same for some other platforms as well. There will be some intermediaries, maybe, but they need to undergo some different type of transformation. I mean, they should not think about not using blockchain because it will affect them negatively. They should find a method, a way of integrating blockchain into their own business. About Counter, the letters of credit transactions are carried out through this system. It's an interbank payment system or interclient payment system, a very important method of payment. It is just like buying with your credit card, shopping with your credit card in daily life, and letters of credit in business life. They have the same meaning. And for Counter, I can say the letters of credit is not dependent on a technology. It can be used on blockchain, on other systems. So it is not under the monopoly of SWIFT or any other system. And why am I using the example of letters of credit? Because it is similar to others as well. It will be a criteria for others as well to talk about the letters of credit. And in terms of blockchain, two banks decide to use this system, and Counter is an initiative. It has smart contracts on it, and the letters of credit transaction is made, and the real transactions are conducted. So real transactions can be carried out, and it has been carried out, and it is easily used in trade. So what should we do right now? With the support of the Treasury and with the support of the Ministry of Trade, we have reached this significant point, and it is an important achievement. So on top of these, we need to set up these new systems, these new initiatives should be implemented. While we are doing these, of course, there will be difficulties, challenges that we will face, and one of these, I should say, is that the approvals of the relevant bodies like the banking supervision agency or other relevant institutions, we should prepare for their approvals, to get approvals from them. And they say blockchain always uses electronic documents and everything should be on electronic medium. And then In the past, ICC issued the EUCP rules in 2002, but so far they haven't used them very effectively. Then there was the Bolero system in 2000 when I went to San Francisco back then. I visited their stand in a fair and they told me about this system in a meeting that was held there. And what Bolero does is that the digital documents are transferred from the banks and from the other relevant parties, and these documents were going to be used. But it didn't make much progress because in the world, all the parties should be engaged in trade. And when all the parties are there, if some of them are using paper-based systems, then it won't work. But it's not the case for blockchain. Contour works on a hybrid structure. So the paper documents, the documents on paper can also be scanned and uploaded to the system. And this is how it is defined in the guidelines. A scanned document is also an electronic document. So if you have the document on paper, then you can scan it and use it easily. And this is important for the blockchain's speed and safety. It shows us that the system can be used very easily and effectively. So I'm very hopeful about this system, and I believe that the business world will be able to use this system very comfortably. And what ICC does in this field, it has taken some initiatives. We have reviewed the blockchain system under the digitalization working group, and we have examined all of these from the beginning. We also had international experts on this working group who held discussions among them. Also, officials from the EU joined us virtually. Online meetings were held, their opinions were asked, and then they said, yes, this technology, DIT and blockchain technology, can be used comfortably. Then they carried out some studies on that. We have a rule-making role. We set the rules for the world trade. So we need to set the rules for this specific field as well. And the payment obligation rules were set up, were created, and we used them in a bank in Turkey. And it was very successful implementation, and we had experience in that sense. And relying on that experience, they said, including blockchain and all other digital platforms, we should prepare a rule set which all transactions can use. And the uniform rules for e-transactions was developed. And so if you give me an infrastructure, like the blockchain infrastructure right now, I can conduct a transaction very easily. Let it be letter of credit or other transactions. I can do that transaction with the uniform rules of e-transaction very easily. So it is new for the business world. And while we were translating those rules, I had concerns about this specific part of it. It says we are changing the business world. And in the financial world, we are introducing new innovations in the supply chain, in other parts of steps of trade. We are introducing new rules, and we have translated these rules. You can download them from our website, both in English and Turkish, and use them. And if you want to conduct a digital transaction, not just for blockchain, it is also independent from technology, not relying on technology. By using these rules, you can conduct any business transaction you want in an easy manner. There will be the buyer and the seller, or there could be an intermediary, the bank, let's say. And in blockchain, you don't even need a bank. On a blockchain with URDDT, I can carry out my transaction. Thank you very much. Yes, we need to pay serious thought to these. And I don't know if I still have time. So these are my comments in general for this part of the webinar. Thank you very much. I was warned by the operation colleagues that We have some time constraints, so it was very nice listening to you, but we need to leave some time for the Q&A session, so I will just ask my last questions to you. Mrs. Ayşen, Mr. Abdurrahman mentioned about what the business world should do, and this I would like to ask you to talk about your suggestions or recommendations to your stakeholders in the business world. Mr. Murat said, do not have reservations, don't think you're lagging behind. So what is your perspective on this? What would you recommend your partners on this?
Çok değerli katılımcılarla çok keyifli bir
Well, thank you very much for this round. And it's been quite useful to hear my colleagues speaking about this very important topic. So I'm taking notes that I think quite relevant. There are two things that Murat referred to. Transformation, change, would be painful. And this has also been reiterated by Mr. Özalp. There will be resistance and some painful process that needs to be suffered by all the parties involved. Particularly in the logistics sector, experts discussing the impact of digitalization in logistics highlight the next 5 years, arguing that the coming 5 years would be quite critical for the logistics sector. Particularly if we are chasing for digitalization of the logistics industry, it will need to be considered from different corners. Also would like to elaborate on a published transparency report. Experts discuss that around the globe, digital transformation expenditures are expected to increase more than 12% in the next 5 years. So what does this tell us? Logistics companies, as highlighted by all the speakers, need to be well prepared, which they're trying to do so because they are urged to do so when there's no other chance than that. And secondly, both from the HR perspective, which is a young, a capital investment, although we are trying too much to digitalize and trying to find a path or method for digitalization, I still believe that it's still human as a subject of the 21st century. So we need to provide good guidance to our young people. And if we can do that, I think there is a bright future for our companies. As we are using different business models to integrate ourselves with, the global way of doing things, and soon there will be an expected increase in the use of autonomous vehicles, EVs, and from brake systems to the driving habits, everything will be transported to the digital platform. I mean, from the point of international transportation, I think it's logistics on a digital scale. Now we're trying to position ourselves. Well, to keep pace with the rest of the world, I think we will be transforming into some kind of digital software company. I think this is going to be the essence of competition as well. As discussed, only if we can provide correct products for our exports, and also we need to consider the effect of different countries, say the chip crisis. Unless you can manufacture chips nationally, or if you do have an export policy in place, then you will be facing bottlenecks because everything is embedded and will end up with chaos. So those who are turning their back to digital transformation, unfortunately, will not be able to catch up a growth trend, which is quite clear. And there is nothing to discuss more about it. But the thing is about the proper use of digitalization. And would like to turn to Ithaca, our own umbrella organization. We have more than 650 members, but the only 67%, of our members are SMEs. from operators or the major airliners, all in the same basket. Port managers, Turkish Airlines, big parcel companies, and a public transport or the parcel company, all members to our organization. So imagine such a major umbrella organization, 6 to 7% of the members are SMEs. All members of our own organization. So digital transformation of SMEs also matter because they are all members of the spectrum, and also the ministry is on our spectrum as well. So the small and medium-scale enterprises, SMEs, will need to be supported maybe at a package from the ministry. So logistic processes that are being run in this process must be working in such a harmony that would avoid the lack of organization, because exporters, importers, airliners, port operators, internal transporters, suppliers, smallest forklift operators, they're all there. All these stakeholders will be working in a single digital platform in harmony, tick-tocking like a clock. So within this system, we need quite a harmonious system that will catch up with the digital trends all in the same way. So this takes the requirements of, yes, we are creating the database, we're making measurements of the system, or maybe scaling of the quality of services. And when you do so, you need to increase your market share in global competition, try to keep pace with that competition, which eventually will meet easy selling of your product. Digital literacy is, a priority today for the young population, young colleagues in such a country as the logistics industry. I think we need to undertake some responsibility. Digital law, digital banking, blockchain, all these are all the areas where the stakeholders are working. But we need to create a way of working in this modular world. In the time of the pandemic, afterwards, and during the Russian-Ukrainian war, the transit procedures have become quite a big problem, and the ministry is aware of this. We want this to be accelerated in a very short period of time. Transit procedures were completed effectively as a contribution to trade. Yes, export is a national matter. It's a national cause for us. It's really important and valuable for everyone in Turkey. But in every time I talk, I need to say that we are positioned quite critically. And if we want to become a logistics hub, maybe the system will need to be facilitated. So we need to be open in following the trends and developments around the globe. In the 21st century, we seem to be quite prone to using technology, and this is how the logistics sector is embracing the world. We all do own logistics companies, their agencies, different places, there are different business models running. So we must put ourselves in a strict discipline as well. It's not merely transporting, but by way of a multidisciplinary approach and by getting inspired from different perspectives in a sounder infrastructure with lower costs, we can find a place in international markets. And I'm saying this for the logistics. I mean, this is unfortunately a very critical business. Unless positioned properly, unfortunately, export will only be a drain. So this is quite a clear fact we need to be aware of. We must be following correct ways of doing business, including digitalization. And we need to interconnect this system with the neighboring countries, and we need to get a proper market share in the global competition. Both the pandemic and the Russian-Ukrainian war brought us to disadvantages. 2022. As a woman, of course, I'm against war, live law, but on the other hand, there are many important opportunities lying ahead of us in this respect. If we can position our country correctly, I'm sure that we can be a lot more successful. But for that, we need good, very good performance measurements, and we need to be prepared. In a kind of feasibility study, we need to be heading towards the future. We need to redesign our infrastructure. Thank you very much. And as I understand from your notes, this is the day to do it. We need to be quick. We need to involve all stakeholders, and all stakeholders will need to take initiative. And a similar question goes to you, Cüneyt Bey. Would you be kind enough to answer the question, what do you think the sectoral stakeholders should do in a good adaptation to blockchain technologies? For one, I also will need to say it, the biggest problem is the cultural problem today. First, we need to accept change, for one, and the same as telephones are used as, different modalities to facilitate our lives, and this makes us happy, and we change our mobile phones maybe for a better adaptation to technology. Similarly, we need business infrastructure and informatics must be good adapted to these technologies. We need technologies such as blockchain, and this must be used to embrace technology. The only thing I want to say is start simple and then move on to automation, and then there is no way out. No one should be afraid of digital transformation or blockchain technologies. There are enormous benefits of the technology, and this point is worth emphasizing. Challenges are important, but I think we need to consider both the downsides and the upsides. We should be concentrating on the upsides, and the change will be more useful if we also consider the downsides as well.
And in terms of Bitcoin, we have this too, will there be digital currency or not? I won't start using it. And there's always this connection between Bitcoin and blockchain being established, but they should be considered separately, and we should have a benefit point of view. These are my comments. Thank you very much, Mr. Cüneyt. You have told us that we should have no fear, continue with the efforts, and what we should do to benefit from it the most, based on your comments. And these are the contributions I can make for the stakeholders. Now, to leave some time for questions in the last 5 minutes, I would like to ask you a question, Mr. Abdurrahman. We talked about blockchain in detail, and we talked about the concerns, the fears that people have, and when they are approaching this technology, but the benefits maybe in order to utilize its benefits, what kind of an approach should we have, and what are the barriers in front of us? How can we overcome them? As I mentioned previously, it should be accepted generally, and the concerns should be addressed. And what is more important is infrastructure. The legal infrastructure should be completed, as Mr. Murat also mentioned. And that is why the UN Trade Commission, transferable electronic records, it should be integrated into Turkish legislation. And the UK sent it to its parliament for the valuable documents and transferable documents about their use on a digital medium, electronic medium. We should also make efforts in this field as well, take some steps, I mean. And they also have a digital platform C4DPR is its name. Center for Digital Trade Innovations is the name of the center. And under the roof of this center, they are carrying out all technology-related efforts. They are coordinating the efforts there. So we should also take steps to this end. And if there are some established centers or structures, we should advance them further. And we should also take it as a model and carry out infrastructure studies, start infrastructure studies. And we lack human resources. We need to train efficient human resources. And in terms of standards, some of us, some firms have different implementations, like setting up their own standards. But these standards should be brought together, because it's a loss of time and energy if they work according to different standards. There's DCI, Digital Trade Initiatives, a set of standards, and more than 100 standards are merged into a document, and those who want to digitalize can benefit from it. So we should maybe make it more available. The public sector can undertake these efforts. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdurrahman. Within the scope of our project, both in phase 1 and phase 2, there are traditional methods and e-trade applications, and in all of these we have policy recommendations, analyzing the current process and redesigning it with blockchain in order to reap the benefits of it, what the public sector should do, and what are the policy recommendations we give. These are all listed in the documents, and I hope it will equally serve all our stakeholders, the final structure that we have. My colleagues informed me that we have lots of questions. As time allows, I'd like to ask some of them. I'd now like to leave the floor to my colleague, Mr. Tayfun, for the questions. Thank you very much, Gülsüm. We have lots of questions, but some of these questions have already been answered during the remarks of our panelists. So, about the current project outputs and the future, about the implementation speed of blockchain, about fight against counterfeiting, about ICC and other international organizations and their expectations, about trade bans and international legislation. We have questions, and some of them, as I mentioned, have already been answered. And however, the remaining ones, we won't be able to ask all of them to the panelists, but we have all the questions recorded, and they will be sent to our experts, and the answers to these questions will be submitted to the owners of these questions. So let's start with you, with one of the questions. Letters of credit, when we start doing them on blockchain, how will the connected payments be made, commission payments as well? Now, there's also cryptocurrency. The central bank digital channels working with cryptocurrency, can they be used in this? It's a very comprehensive question. There is need for lots of analysis, but from the technological perspective and in terms of the legislative framework, let me provide an answer. I cannot say it's technologically impossible. It is of course possible, but in foreign trade, in banking, and in other systems, there is a need for abiding by the legislation and adaptation, harmonization of the legislation. The use of cryptocurrency is not at an internationally recognized level in our country. So if the use of its use for letter of credit is not something that I expect would happen in the short term. But for the letters of credit, as Mr. Abdurrahman mentioned, if the required documents are digitalized, then letters of credit transactions can be accelerated. So the processes can be digitalized and the blockchain infrastructure can be used in that. This way, payments in the short term, including these units and also preventing money laundering, if these are ensured, then we can use it, but until then, the traditional banking methods will be used. Another relevant question, Mr. Abdurrahman opened up a new door for us about money transfer, he said, also including money transfer, all the processes that need confirmation when we carry them to blockchain, then the need for confirmation by the institutions will not be the case anymore, also including the banks. So will these be under the control of the central banks of countries, or will there be a separate system, independent system? So what will the role of central banks be in such a new system? Mr. Abdurrahman, the floor is yours. Normally, what does blockchain do? It rules out all the intermediaries that require safety confirmation. But if the bank is not involved, how will the audit be? It depends on the regulation in the country. There are lots of technologies in countries which are all subject to regulations and arrangements. But today, it is the same way. It is possible without the involvement of banks, but it will also depend on the regulations in countries. These may be banned. For example, a country may say without the use of banks, no money transfer will be made on blockchain. Just to give an example, similar bans could be imposed. So we need to study these and make our decisions accordingly. And another question about international and domestic legislation. The international implementations of blockchain, in order for them to reach their true potential, both technological and legislation harmonization should be there between different countries at the international level. Are there bilateral or multilateral initiatives being taken to this end for the countries to get more familiar with one another and about learning about each other's digital data and connecting their systems? Can I give an answer to this question? Of course, this is a new technology and technology keeps changing. In my presentation, I mentioned that we used paper, then we translated to the online system and it was developed further. Now we have web and now we will use blockchain. So there is nothing changing from this perspective. The international organizations will accept this new technology. There is no need for any other efforts about requirements, other requirements than this, or anything that should be done in that sense. Yes, it is possible, it can be used, but the electronic documents, maybe some documents related to the customs, some documents related to certain declarations can be used on the system. But looking at it just as a technology, there is no need for any different type of harmonization. As a follow-up of this question, but also about the project outputs and the future of this technology, I would like to ask a question, which will be the final question today. The current project is about the digitalization of the technology and use of blockchain, but doesn't it have to be mutual, the use of blockchain in both countries who are engaged in transactions? So at least in the surrounding countries, neighboring countries and regional countries, there may be needs for some cooperation. Are there plans for establishing such cooperation with regional or neighboring countries? Maybe will there be needed legislation, but I shouldn't say legislation after the comments of Mr. Abdurrahman, but maybe will there be steps taken for interoperability for the systems of different countries to work together? Are there any such plans? As far as I can remember, in the closing meeting of our first phase, we had a similar question. End-to-end process, as we put it, and we also call it domestic within the borders of Turkey. So it always raises a concern for the listeners. It's a proof of concept study. It has two phases because the use of blockchain for customs and for logistics and for foreign trade, we will prove if it's useful or not. And in the outputs of the second phase, which will be shared with you in December, as far as we are concerned, in foreign trade, the different transaction steps are reduced by 40% with this project. So it is very useful. It has many other benefits as well, but to use the time effectively, I should say in brief that it is a system which benefits foreign trade. With the projects that we have realized and with the codes that we have written and the studies we have undertaken, we have proven this. And if there are any changes, amendments of legislation that are required, we made recommendations to the ministry to that end. And if the public sector considers this project beneficial, and the benefits of it will not be on a single axis, of course, there will be different evaluations being made, and if it is considered beneficial, then we will continue ahead with this project and we will see what the future will bring us. Thank you very much. We have used our time very effectively as always and not being delayed. And I would like to thank distinguished participants and you distinguished panelists. I believe it has been a very productive day for us. And I would like to close this panel right now. Thank you.